It seems like most of us wish we could go back to being like SpongeBob. But do we really?
Squidward!
I'm Squidward, Squidward, Squidward.
Wait, it's not enough to look like Squidward to be opposite.
You have to act like him too.
The show SpongeBob SquarePants is easily one of the most iconic cartoons of all time. Let's be real, every single person watching this has probably seen at least 1 or 2 episodes at minimum. Me, personally, I can't get enough of it. Ever since I was a kid, I've watched the show, and the show has only grown more special to me. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. Millions of people around the globe have a deep appreciation for SpongeBob. They gave such good feedback that it eventually allowed the show to be renewed for 14 seasons. Not to mention, there's movies, merchandise, games, fan fictions, swimsuits, and more. All of these things have led to SpongeBob being an $8 billion franchise. The show is massively successful even in things outside of money. For example, there are thousands of memes that have been created using SpongeBob. The show has resonated beyond its individual episodes, and in the modern age, people take certain screenshots and add whatever clever caption they can think of. This meme has stuck around for years, and no one knows why. Even in recent years, fans have made their own games around SpongeBob, including Mr. Krabs overdoses on ketamine. Look, the show has simply connected with its audience so deep that it's become a pop culture staple. For the past 20 years, only 2 other cartoons have come close to the impact that SpongeBob has had, but I'll explain why they haven't quite reached that level yet. The first one is pretty obvious: The Simpsons. The show is the longest lasting series in the history of cartoons. It began in 1987, when it was a segment on The Tracy Ullman Show. This was in 1987, which was 37 years ago. However, the show has definitely seen a decline in popularity over the past couple of decades. The average viewers per episode for season 33 was 1.95 million. This number is extremely impressive. However, season 12 averaged 14.2 million viewers. The Simpsons are slowly decreasing, and they see less of a cultural impact each year. The other show I'm going to mention, I say, makes a better statement. The show being Family Guy.
Thanks for having us over.
Family Guy has also had its run of games and merchandise, but it simply hasn't had the same impact as SpongeBob. As of 2024, SpongeBob is the 15th most popular TV show online. Family Guy is number 41. What Family Guy does better than The Simpsons is memes. This allows Family Guy to resonate with the younger generations more, which The Simpsons have lacked to do. Alright, we get it. The show is ridiculously popular. I'm just confused as to why it is so much more impactful than Family Guy or The Simpsons. I get they have different plots and characters, but isn't their goal just to entertain? Well, that is true. The primary purpose of these shows is to entertain. We can all sit down and watch some episodes of SpongeBob and have a good chuckle, but why is it so different? Is it the unique art style? Is it the unique plot of the episodes? Is it because it's kid-friendly? Well, I don't know. But we just start by looking at some academic pieces. I researched some journals and I found one titled SpongeBob SquarePants, Pop Culture Tsunami or More. The article states that the show is simply an awkward person inside of an awkward situation, where, quote, the main character is sometimes unaware of social norms and rules. They also cite SpongeBob as a leader-taking character. They use an example of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, where we see SpongeBob try to take care of the retired superhero. They say that the show is mostly in the slapstick genre, as funny gags make up a good portion of the show, where most of the time, SpongeBob is annoying his co-worker/neighbor, Squidward. However, this show cannot be this simple, and the writers of the article are aware of this. They give multiple ideas such as, SpongeBob relieves such stress by providing easygoing, simple stories with common yet valuable virtues such as, honesty is the best policy. To summarize their ideas of perception, they say, quote, SpongeBob teaches audience core primal lessons. From this, we can summarize the article. There were loads of mentions of the show being used as a means to mitigate stress. It also states strong emotional bonds and connections that the characters have with each other. We can learn social skills and lessons from the diverse characters just interacting with each other. The setting of the show is also not very serious. The main character lives in a pineapple under the sea. He's neighbors with a squid and a starfish. He loves to go to work with his boss who is a crab, and he is best friends with an air-breathing squirrel. This is the whole point. The show is not serious, and it calms people down. While I do believe that most of these factors are present within the show, I believe that there's a little more than meets the eye. You see, every other cartoon is simply entertainment. They have diverse casts that interact with each other. But they don't capture the same emotion that SpongeBob does. The show clearly had some secret sauce that we don't know about. Okay, we get it. The show is a little more complex than we think. But isn't it just a sponge and his friends that go on adventures? Well, yeah, it kinda is. SpongeBob and Patrick are always going on adventures with each other. They love to go jellyfishing. They love stealing balloons on Free Balloon Day. And they love sitting in cardboard boxes and using their imagination. Yes, SpongeBob and his friend Squidward love to go on adventures. Yes, SpongeBob and his friend Squidward love to go on adventures, but Squidward's kind of an asshole. Squidward is always annoyed by SpongeBob because SpongeBob is always getting in some kind of trouble. If I was Squidward, I would hate hanging out with SpongeBob. But why does Squidward hang out with him? Why does SpongeBob keep trying to be friends with Squidward? Holy shit. Yeah, this idea wasn't mine. I got the whole idea from a YouTube video from YouTuber AmpLemon. He is the one that had this realization. In his video, he says that Squidward is the glue that holds the show together.
The character that single-handedly makes SpongeBob work is Squidward Q Tentacles. And it might not be obvious why, but when I watched this one very simple scene from the episode Dying for Pie, all the pieces of the puzzle suddenly came together. This short, basic clip with no dialogue represents precisely why SpongeBob is such a popular show. When I watched this scene as a kid, I was SpongeBob. But when I watch this scene today, I'm Squidward.
The squid with the big nose is the single character that bridges childhood and adulthood. It gives everyone the opportunity to love and appreciate this show, as there is a character for kids and a character for adults. Now I'll dive more into this idea later, but why is this type of character so important? Not just Squidward, but other asshole-like creatures. The idea I want to explore is the presence of archetypes in SpongeBob. We see all these different conspiracy theories about how SpongeBob represents the 7 deadly sins, or how it's run by the Illuminati, but this is all up for interpretation, and we can see the different archetypes in each of the characters. This article states that SpongeBob is, quote, an eternal optimist. This makes sense. In the show, he's always looking forward to making other people's days. To put it simply, he is the one to make the Captain America speech before some amazing fight scene. The only problem with this archetype is in the name, Eternal Optimist. If he's always optimistic, he may miss out on being realistic. No one person can live without a little bit of optimism. But the same goes for pessimism. Squidward is there to bring SpongeBob back to reality. Patrick, who some people may think is the real secret, has the archetype of the dumb guy. Patrick has always been and will always be, frankly, stupid. That's the whole point of his character. He literally lives under a rock, which is a metaphor for being oblivious. You can argue that yes, SpongeBob may try to teach Patrick things, but there's never really any conflict between them. Of course, they've had their fair share of beef before, but they've all been a result of Patrick's own idiocy. Take the example from the episode Life of Crime. We reach a scene where SpongeBob and Patrick have fled town because they stole a balloon on Free Balloon Day. They begin almost fighting over a chocolate bar because Patrick failed to realize that he had already eaten his chocolate bar. You see, these conflicts don't really stir that deep of emotions in the viewer. They're used mainly as gags or to try to change the pace of the episode. These fights are just plain stupid, like Patrick, but whenever SpongeBob and Squidward have disagreements, it makes sense because of the archetype of Squidward. I believe that Squidward fills the role of the anti-hero. Now, you may be confused because isn't Squidward the villain? Well, he isn't. There's a clear difference between an anti-hero and a villain, and I believe it's best summarized from this clip made by JCS Criminal Psychology.
So you might be curious about the contrast between the anti-hero and the villain. One we embrace and relate to, while the other we despise and detach from. Both are driven by selfish motivations, yet our emotional response differs between them. The reason for this, while not necessarily obvious, is a relatively simple formula. The anti-hero must have a glimmer of humanity alongside a noticeable vulnerability. This is what allows the viewer to truly connect with the character. It allows us to forgive them when they are unethical, but admire them when they are noble.
Villains are pure evil, and they have little to no redeeming qualities. We can all relate to villains, as sometimes they are taken advantage of and are only seeking revenge. But it's not the same as an anti-hero. Anti-heroes are objectively bad people. Most of the time, they'll fill a role of a loser that hates his life and is a nuisance to most people. I'll use the example of the Grinch, arguably the most famous anti-hero. At the beginning, everybody low-key hates him. He's the one that hates Christmas so much that he stole the entire city's gifts. It's whenever he talks to a character named Cindy Lou. Cindy has always been excited during Christmas time, and she is the one that finally opens up the Grinch. Now this is the key. An anti-hero isn't an anti-hero if there isn't a change of heart. And this makes them special because we see them grow over the span of the film. Seeing them finally reach the turning point feels incredibly special to anyone watching. Now, we have SpongeBob, an eternal optimist, and Squidward, an anti-hero. Now these characters work together perfectly. You may be asking why, because they're completely different. Well, that's the answer. They're completely different. We see this difference most perfectly in the episode Pizza Delivery. Pizza Delivery is probably the most perfect example of this dichotomy between SpongeBob and Squidward. The episode starts with a simple task. Someone calls the Krusty Krab and requests a pizza for delivery. Squidward obviously did not want to deliver the pizza because it was near closing time. But Mr. Krabs, being greedy, accepts the delivery order. So he sends his best employees, SpongeBob and Squidward, on a quest to deliver this pizza. Immediately, we can see that SpongeBob and Squidward are not getting along so good. This ramps up whenever SpongeBob kicks the car into reverse and drives straight into the desert. And this is where the real fun starts. After they get stuck in the desert, they get stuck in a tornado because SpongeBob refused to let go of the pizza. After the tornado is over, they're even more stranded, and SpongeBob uses a rock to determine which direction civilization is in. At this point, Squidward is tired of SpongeBob's shenanigans and goes in the opposite direction, which shows his lack of trust in SpongeBob's intuition. SpongeBob, however, chooses to follow Squidward anyway. They then notice a large rock, and Squidward brushes it off. However, SpongeBob swears that this rock is the secret to finally escape the desert. According to SpongeBob, they could use the rock to ride all the way to the city. Squidward refuses to trust SpongeBob again, and is once again proven wrong. At this point, they have reached the house they needed to deliver to. SpongeBob goes up to the house to give the pizza to the customer, but he forgets something important. He forgot the drink. He forgot the drink. At this point, this fucking asshole, piece of shit, son of a bitch, no good, dirty, scumbag, scrotum-chin fish starts yelling at SpongeBob, causing him to cry. After SpongeBob cries, Squidward stands up for SpongeBob and gives the customer what he deserves. Now this episode shows the one aspect of the anti-hero that is special, which is the change of heart. Squidward continually chooses to ignore SpongeBob's advice, even though the advice is correct. SpongeBob, though, shows unwavering trust and willingness for Squidward. Whenever the customer flips out, it angers Squidward because SpongeBob was constantly in high spirits, and no one should knock down another like that. This is the key difference between Squidward being important and Squidward being an asshole. He sticks up for what's right. While watching the episode, I noticed a certain dynamic between the two characters. It was similar to an interaction between a child and an adult. SpongeBob, being the metaphorical child, is always in a state of wonder, while Squidward is always stuck in some form of misery. The thing is, they're both in the same situation with the same circumstances. It's the way they choose to look at things that differs between them. Squidward always keeps his head down and is just trying to survive. He once had dreams and now he fantasizes about a life that he doesn't have. SpongeBob, though, chooses to appreciate the little things in life, which is what Squidward is missing. In a way, SpongeBob and Squidward complete each other. Without either one of them, the show would not be where it is today. It's this interaction between them. It's the drive that SpongeBob has to show Squidward what it means to be happy. And it's the drive that Squidward has to stick up for SpongeBob. They perfectly complement each other. One thing I mentioned earlier is that this show doesn't begin to fade out like other shows. Things get old pretty quick, but for some godforsaken reason, SpongeBob still manages to stick around. You can always rewatch episodes, even if you've seen them a week ago or 15 years ago, it doesn't matter. It brings up the question though, why does this show remain to be interesting? How did I enjoy it back then versus how I enjoy it now? I mean, so many things have changed. My personality, my mood, my attention span. and especially my perspective. You see, whenever you watch SpongeBob whenever you were younger, you see that SpongeBob is the main character. You get excited to see him go on all kinds of adventures, and this excites you. You think Squidward is an asshole because you haven't had enough experience in life to realize that he's an asshole only because of SpongeBob annoying him. This brings things to the modern day. Whenever you watch SpongeBob now, you begin to notice that you understand Squidward. Like, it makes sense. Of course he's mad whenever he's forced to deliver something. Of course he's mad whenever he has annoying coworkers. And of course he's mad whenever his alone time is interrupted. You understand Squidward because you are Squidward. This is the secret sauce that has allowed SpongeBob to stick around for this long. Seeing yourself as Squidward allows you to kind of root for him. Notice how the highest rated episode in the show's history, Band Eats, ends with Squidward finally reaching a triumphant moment. Is this moment that we are chasing for our entire lives. We all have hopes and dreams, and sometimes things just don't work out. We relate to Squidward because he also had dreams, and we triumph with him whenever he finally reaches that point of happiness. But it strikes a thought. When watching the show, we see that SpongeBob never really experiences a moment of triumph like this. Well, it's because he's almost always in a state of pure glee. He is the representation of the younger version of ourselves that were simply curious and excited to explore the world. Every new thing we discovered meant the world to us, and as we grow older, we realize that the world slowly lost its charm. This is the point where we turn into Squidward. However, when watching the show, we slowly gain back the part of us that wants to go out and try things. This change of heart is present in almost all stories that include an anti-hero. But what this show does different is that it encourages you to live in a balance with both parts of yourself. Look, the world can't be all sunshine and rainbows, and it's also not a place where you rot away. The show is all about the balance between our current selves and our inner charm. It encourages us to enjoy the little things and appreciate things in our everyday lives. You may be thinking, why am I so invested in a show about a sponge? My follow-up question is, why can't I be? Not everything in life has to be gray and dull, and this show is a perfect example. The show's creator, Steven Hillenburg, spent his free time making drawings of this colorful world that we know today as SpongeBob. Little to his knowledge at the time, but these drawings would lead to millions of people worldwide, all showing support and all making some memories. The show has a special place in my heart, as for years, me and my brother would watch all the episodes, play all the games, and sing all the songs. With us, there's a million others doing the same. Moral of the story, don't be a Squidward. By the way, before I wanted to make this video, I really wanted this shot, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that.